This is a recording from our 30-minute snack room bite-sized learning series where you'll learn what leadership capacity is and how you can begin growing yours today. This video covers a clear understanding of leadership capacity and the 3 ifs that shape it, insights into the common obstacles that limit a leader's potential and how to identify them, and 3 powerful tools to overcome these barriers and boost your leadership capacity starting now.
Welcome to the Leadership Edge and our snack room. This is our time where we get together and you're going to get a bite-sized learning over the next 30 minutes. And today we're talking about how you can expand your leadership capacity as a leader. So at the end of our time, you're going to understand what leadership capacity is, and you'll have at least 1 up to 3 takeaways on how you can start growing your leadership capacity now. If you have any questions during our time, type it in the chat. Our producer is going to be going through those questions, and we'll be engaging those questions during our Q&A time, which is going to go from 9:30 to 9:45. And please make sure that you stick around. Savannah is going to announce, she's our producer today, she's going to announce the snack room snack box winner at the end of our time. And that you do not want to miss that, especially if you don't have anything planned for lunch. That is going to be a lifesaver. Okay, so we're going to kick it off. A brief introduction. There are so many faces here and so many names. I'm just going to share really briefly who in the world I am, who's going to be taking up some of your time this morning. My name is John Sloss. I am a husband and a father of 2 girls. I say that because everything I do when I'm developing leaders really is informed about trying to parent my own kids and just being a better human being. It's amazing the crossover between those two. Professionally, I've been working and developing people in some capacity for the last 20 years. And a lot of what we talk about today with leadership capacity comes from my time when I was a licensed mental health therapist and being able to bring in some of that people-centered awareness to how we lead and leading more effectively. That's one of my big passions. And I love life sciences. I've been working with the Leadership Edge for a couple of years now. And I'm really excited for today, not only because we get to talk about leadership capacity, which is a passion topic of mine, but we get to talk about a partnership that we are doing in bringing a new leadership development platform to the Leadership Edge. We'll talk about that a little bit towards the end here. All right, we have 30 minutes. We're going to move fast. Let's just talk about what the goal is today. You're here at 9:30 Pacific time. You're going to come away understanding what leadership capacity is and how you can start growing your leadership capacity today or the leadership capacity of your team. We're going to have 3 objectives. The first is understand what leadership capacity is and understand the 3 ifs of leadership capacity. Our second is to uncover 3 obstacles or 3 barriers that impact most leaders as they try to increase their leadership capacity. And then finally, we're going to give 3 tools. We're going to utilize these tools today to give you little bite-sized action steps that you can take to start increasing your leadership as soon as we finish. It's that simple. So let's get started with objective 1. When we talk about leadership capacity, I love this term because it has a couple different definitions. And these definitions are really important for life sciences. I have yet to work with a life science group that says we have enough time. Actually, could you give us more? We have time plenty. Never met a life science group that has said that. And I've also never met a life science group that says, you know what, it's kind of boring here. Things are moving slow and we don't just, it's the same old thing. Life science is dynamic and fast paced. So as we talk about leadership capacity, it is your ability as a leader, it's your maximum ability to make transformational impact at any given time. That's a leader's capacity. And you can think about that a couple different ways. You can think about capacity as defined by how much something can hold. You have a 1 gallon bucket, its capacity is 1 gallon. And when we talk about leadership capacity, we're talking about bandwidth in that way. We're talking about how much you can hold as a leader. Do you have any bandwidth in your day to actually lead and actually have an impact? You can also talk about capacity as the ability to produce something. Our kitchen faucet has the ability to fill 2 gallons of water a minute. That's its capacity. When we flip that to leadership, it is a leader's natural and trained ability to impact other people. It's your soft skills, it's your strategic ability, it's your competency in understanding life science and understanding other human beings. So when we put those two definitions of capacity together, we're talking about a leader's maximum ability to make transformative impact at any given time. And we talk about this because in the last few years, we've created a leadership platform that we call LEAD, that just stands for Leadership Effectiveness and Discovery. And we talk about leadership capacity because when we work with leaders and they want to become a better leader, that's really abstract. What does that mean? Well, when we put the phrase leadership capacity into their development, all of a sudden it becomes a little more concrete. You can measure capacity. You can measure how people are spending their time, and you can measure the impact they're having with their team. And so as we developed this program, we talked about leadership capacity from day one. And the key here that we've found over the last few years is the best leaders, they have the time to actually lead, and they also have the ability to lead. So that's kind of bringing full circle this definition of leadership capacity, your maximum ability to lead with impact at any given time. And now there's 3 ifs for every leader's impact. If you want to grow your leadership capacity, you need to do these 3 things. You need to grow your leadership awareness, you need to grow your leadership mindset, and you need to grow your leadership behavior. We've got this little diagram here. It's a simple graphic that highlights how these 3 are interrelated. You cannot grow your leadership capacity without growing all 3 of these influential factors together. And that's why we call them the 3 ifs. If you develop your awareness and mindset and behavior as a leader, then you grow your capacity as a leader. If you don't, you won't. And we'll talk about some of the barriers there in just a minute. The last thing I want to share before we go into some of the barriers here is simply a lot of leaders go into developing their leadership ability with, I just need more knowledge. Well, that would be awareness. That's great. Or I just need to think more like a leader. That would be their mindset. That's great. Or I just need to behave like a better leader. Behavior. That's great. But if you don't work all 3 of them together, any results you see in increased capacity will be short lived. Because when we're talking about increasing your capacity, we're talking about doing leadership differently than you have done it before. We're talking about being a different leader, a different mindset, a different way of thinking, and a different way of behaving. And unless you have all 3 of these working together, true change isn't sustainable. And that's life sciences, that's leadership development, that's learning how to play baseball. You have to develop a mindset, awareness, and behavior together to actually have lasting change. In this case, leadership capacity. Okay, so what in the world are some of the obstacles that leaders face most often when it comes to leadership capacity? Well, I was saying that life sciences, it's fast moving, it's fast paced, there's lots of change. And one of the things that almost every leader I work with when going and facilitating, for example, our lab to leader program, is this state of being reactive. It is common. It is something that kicks in automatically when the day is unpredictable. It is what leaders experience when they have their team going towards one goal and all of a sudden senior leadership makes a pivot because there's a new priority, right? It is that sense of I had a plan today and life happened and now I'm reacting to events. And so reactivity is a big trap for leaders. When we're in a reactive mode, we are being driven by our emotions, and our emotions make things appear more important than they really are. Why is this a barrier for leadership capacity? Because leaders focus on the urgent rather than what is truly important. Sometimes they're the same thing. Don't get me wrong. If it's urgent, sometimes it really is important. But often our emotions make it more important than it actually is. We just call that urgency bias. And so when we're developing our awareness as a leader, if we are in a reactive state, we're responding to what feels urgent rather than what is actually important. How does that look for most leaders we work with? Well, they're trying to control the situation and they end up doing more, and their time becomes dominated by putting out fires. So ask yourself this: if you ever go into work and at the end of the day you wonder, where did the time go? What did I actually do today? That is a really good clue that you spent a lot of your time reacting to events. If you look at your to-do list from the day and at the end of the day there's not a lot crossed off, that's another tell that you spent a lot of time reacting to the day's events. And the output of that is leaders lose bandwidth to do what they need to do to have the most impact. And so, as we go on to the next obstacle, what I want to highlight here is if you want to grow your leadership capacity, you need awareness, but awareness requires being intentional and proactive. It requires putting time aside to actually be aware. And leaders who are in this reactive state, reacting to events every single day, they simply don't have the ability to be intentional and aware because all of these urgent items are crowding that out. Okay, obstacle number two. This is an obstacle towards mindset. And it's a mindset where leaders believe they have to do it all. They have to do everything. This is one of the most common mindsets that we work with when we're developing, especially new leaders or frontline leaders. And any of you, if you're in a company that is rapidly growing and your headcount is skyrocketing and you need new leaders and you are promoting people into management, just be aware this is one of the biggest barriers, especially new leaders face. It's the mindset of, I have to do everything. And it's because they're coming from a contributor mindset where they are doing everything. And now they're a leader and they don't change that mindset. And so when we compare and contrast the two, a contributor mindset is I'm producing my work. I have my tasks. I'm in charge and producing the output. It's up to me. If I don't do it, no one will. Actually, when they become a leader, that mindset is nearly an exact opposite. It's my job is to do less and be empowering more. It's to set my team up to do what I used to do. And of course, these are very kind of static definitions, and life isn't static. There's crossover there, but we experience leaders who have a mindset of I have to hold on to everything, and nobody has the bandwidth for that. And when you hold on to everything and you can't do everything, you've just created this self-fulfilling prophecy of now having more urgent items because you have too much on your to-do list and not enough time. And so when we're talking about a leadership mindset, we often have leaders who struggle with prioritizing actually thinking about leadership, actually thinking about supporting their team. We're not talking about their heart or what they want or their hope. I've not worked with any leaders who don't want to be more effective leaders. We're simply talking about the mindset and what they prioritize. And they're trying to do everything, and leadership, supporting their team, thinking strategically, creating development plans for their team, all of these things that are critical for engaging their team members, those are the things that go to the back burner because there are more urgent things they feel like they have to do. And so that's obstacle number two. It's a mindset of doing it all. Obstacle number one was blocking out your awareness because everything's urgent. And so here's our third obstacle, and it focuses on behavior. Again, those three components, those three ifs of expanding your capacity. And the third being behavior. And that is a leader focusing on doing leadership rather than being a leader. And this is a huge shift as well, because again, as a contributor, you're used to doing. And when we're used to doing something, we have muscle memory. Right? It's how we walk, and don't forget how to walk. It is how I guess I'm just really into baseball right now. It's how we catch a ball. It's reactions. It's what's natural to us. And for leaders, what is very natural is doing everything. I don't have time to delegate because I can do it better, faster, and just get it done, which might be true, but you're still doing everything. And when we're working with developing leaders, one of the hardest things we work through with them is for their behaviors to be more about being a better human being. Because trust is critical to leadership, and how your team sees you behaving every single day will carry more weight than the quality of work you produce. That is important too. You need competency. But first and foremost, if your team can't trust you, then how capable you are doesn't matter. And in order for your team to trust you, your mindset and your behavior has to be around being a better human being, living empathetically, supporting your team, and your actions and your life have to back that up. And so your behavior supports or decreases your leadership capacity. How you choose to interact with your team impacts how they perceive you, how you choose to prioritize your time, the calls you choose to make that day, or the one-on-ones you choose to postpone because life is busy. All of those behaviors increase or decrease your leadership capacity, that maximum impact you can have on your team every single day. And the third reason behavior is so hard for leaders in life sciences is when we take a deep breath and we talk about creating new behaviors, new mindset, new awareness, it takes 6 months on average to do that. 6 months. Who has 6 months in life sciences? Who has a week sometimes? We're so fast paced. It takes 6 months, and leaders in life science typically just don't have a 6 month block of time. Not that you're doing it 24/7, but a 6 month period where they can focus on just developing a new behavior every single day. Do, review, and repeat until it becomes a new habit. And so there's a time crunch to develop new behaviors. There is an attitude, a mindset of having to do it all. And there is a lack of awareness in leaders because they're reacting to events outside of their control more often than not. Those are the three barriers we see leaders facing most often that decreases their leadership capacity. So I said we're going to be out of here at 9:30, and we are. That means it is time to get to what we can do about it. So when we're talking about an action step, a call to action that you can take today, or you can train your team to take today, let's talk about awareness first. Remember, we were talking about an awareness barrier being a reactive state. Well, how do you get out of a reactive state? You fact check that urgency. This person is really fact checking. You don't have to get out a microscope or a magnifying glass. You don't have to do that. When we're talking about fact checking urgency, 5 deep breaths. Awesome, John. Thank you for having me come to a 30-minute learning time where you're teaching me to breathe. How is that helpful? Well, it's a reminder because if you take 3 deep breaths, that actually gets your emotional brain offline and your executive functioning online. Okay. Emotions are not great decision makers. They are great to inform us, but we want our emotions to take a back seat and we want our executive functioning to be calling the shots. So when you're feeling urgency, it takes 3 deep breaths to have those emotions go to the back seat so you can start thinking clearly again. So I just put up here 5 breaths. Give yourself a little extra room. And what we train our leaders in the lead program through is what we just call square breathing. It's not rocket science. You do more difficult stuff every single day than this, but it's a reminder, it's awareness. It is breathing in for 5 seconds, holding your breath for 5 seconds, exhaling for 5 seconds, and then waiting for 5 seconds. That is what we're talking about with square breathing. And you do that one round, okay? 3 breaths like that. And then you fact check, is this as urgent as I feel it is? And at that point, it doesn't matter what you do because whatever you choose to do next, you now have awareness to back it up. You've taken those emotions to the back seat and you now have awareness. The second, for prioritizing check-ins, this is for, excuse me, this is for mindset. Apologize, that should say mindset there. But when we're talking about removing this idea that you have to do everything as a leader, that mindset is a contributor. When we're working with leaders on a more impactful mindset, we're encouraging them and reminding them your job is to support the team. So the other thing you can do is daily check-ins. I don't mean for half an hour. I mean, first thing you do every single day is you check in with all of your team members. What do you need from me? How are you? If it's more than 3 minutes, you need to schedule a follow up. It's not meant to be solving the world every single morning. It's meant to be one human being checking in with another human being and seeing how you can support them. And if they give you something, it is prioritizing that day. If they say, I really need your help, I need your thoughts on reviewing this document, what do you think about this data? You prioritize it, you schedule it that moment. So it's a mindset again of being a support and an agent who empowers your team, not somebody who has to do it all. Again, this is not rocket science, but it's amazing how many leaders have been leaders for 20 years and they forget to do these most basic tools to develop their team. And the third thing you can do, this is one of my favorite pictures. That is a clock running rampant and a cow person trying to rope it in. The third you can do is reclaim your time. And that's a behavior. Reclaiming your time, looking at what is valuable, and making the choice to spend your time where it matters most. If you've gone through the Lab to Leadership program, we're talking about high payoff activities. This activity here is something we teach in the LEAD program, but it's essentially, again, a callback to Lab to Leader. It's essentially a simplified SPED worksheet that you can do every single day if you wanted to. But it is looking at your calendar over the last week, looking at what took up your time, and just giving each of those items a value. It's not complicated. Put a V next to it if it added value, put an N next to it if it was net neutral, put a W next to it if it wasted your time, and be bullish with those W's, okay? Because your time is valuable, you don't get it back. And then when you look at anything that you categorize as an N or a W, your behavior needs to be create an action plan to turn that into a value add or to eliminate it. You can eliminate it through delegation, you can eliminate it through creating a better process, or you can eliminate it because it's just not needed anymore. But that behavioral action step is looking at your time and truly challenging how valuable it was. And anywhere where it's not valuable, get rid of it. It's the idea of you have a garage, we have a garage at least, and we keep adding stuff. We've got two girls, they keep wanting stuff. I can't say no. I've got boundary issues as a parent, apparently, and I want to give them everything. And so our garage just gets more and more stuff. At some point, you have to get rid of stuff. And as leaders, this behavior to reclaim your time is doing exactly that. It's getting rid of what is not the highest and best use of your time. And so relooking at these three steps here, your action step number one, fact check urgency, 5 deep breaths, and then revisit item and see if it is truly as urgent as your emotions were saying it is. And if it is, great, focus on that. If it's not, do it later or delegate it. Either way, you now have awareness and intentions behind your actions. The second, do check-ins with your team every single day. That's a mindset. I don't have time to check in with your team. You have to have time. Your team is worth it. You're worth it as a leader, and they need that from you. 2 to 3 minutes. How are you? What do you need from me? And if they do need something, schedule a time to revisit it ASAP. That's a mindset. And then the behavior is tracking your time, looking at your time, and removing what is not the highest and best use of your time. Speaking of time, that's our time. I want to touch very briefly here on everything I just shared is a part of our lead program that the Leadership Edge is now rolling out. It is a program that takes place over 6 months. It is a program that meets in cohorts once a month. It is data driven. For those of you who love data, you can't grow what you don't measure. So we have baseline emotional intelligence insights. We have time analysis assessments. We do monthly 360 assessments. We are tracking the growth of leaders in small groups for 6 months. And we're adjusting their development in real time based off of these 360 assessments. It's structured. They get weekly learnings and then a cohort every month to talk about what leadership looks like on all the topics that they are learning. It is one of my favorite ways to develop leaders because development takes time. And lead is giving the leaders time they need to develop in a way where it's actually going to stick. And they're not going to need to take a training again a year later just to remember it. As far as success, this has been going on for 2 years. We're just rolling out to Leadership Edge. On average, participants that we run through LEAD, they get 3 weeks back in their year. That's 3 weeks of time they're using more efficiently. And their direct reports say after 6 months that they're better leaders, 13% improved satisfaction with their leadership. You have more leaders who are viewed to be more effective, then you're increasing retention, you're increasing engagement, you're increasing the quality of work that's being done. So that's not nothing. So this is a lead offering. It's being rolled out now. We're launching cohorts. And if you want more information on that, you can scan this QR code and you can take all the time in the world to read over this informational.